In the heart of the Wild West, where the sun beat down relentlessly and the wind howled through barren land, lived a widow named Clara. Strong and determined, Clara had learned to fend for herself after her husband unexpectedly kicked her out. With her faithful companion, an old white goat named Petunia, she faced the harsh realities of life alone. Clara's weathered face was lined with stories of resilience. The dust of the plains often clung to her clothes, but she carried herself with a quiet strength that made her stand out among the rugged landscape. While others struggled with their daily routines, Clara embraced her solitude, finding comfort in the company of Petunia, who trailed behind her like a shadow. Though Clara had lost much, she never lost hope. Every morning, she rose with the sun, her heart set on making a life for herself. She gathered wild herbs for medicine and fresh greens to eat, teaching herself how to harness the land's quiet offerings. Her laughter echoed softly across the plains when Petunia playfully nudged her for treats. Even if the dark clouds loomed like heavy shadows, Clara refused to let them overshadow her spirit. Her days were filled with tending to the small garden she nurtured and dreaming of brighter tomorrows. Little did she know that a forgotten stone cistern lay waiting for her, an unexpected treasure that would change everything and prove that hope could always bloom, even in the unlikeliest of places. Clara's life took a sudden turn when her husband, filled with anger and frustration, decided he no longer wanted her by his side. The sun had just dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over their modest homestead, when he issued those painful words. "You're on your own now, Clara. I can't keep doing this." His voice echoed in the stillness, leaving her shocked and heartbroken. With only the belongings she could carry, Clara stood amidst the fading light as he walked away, leaving her behind like a withered leaf caught in a gust of wind. It was a rough world out there, one she had not prepared for on her own. The stark reality of isolation weighed heavily on her shoulders as she watched him disappear into the distance, tears blurring her vision. The unforgiving landscape felt even harsher without the warmth of companionship. Every day became a fight to survive as she now faced fierce winds and fierce solitude without support. Yet, deep inside, Clara knew she had only two choices, to crumble or to rise again. She chose to rise, but it wouldn't be easy. As she wandered through fields of dry grass and scraggly bushes, Clara felt the weight of survival settle upon her. Each day brought new challenges. Finding food became paramount, forcing her to dig deeper into her resourcefulness. She would often gaze at the vast sky and remind herself, tomorrow is another chance. Little did she know that her journey had just begun, leading her to an unexpected discovery that would change her fate forever. As days turned into weeks, Clara ventured farther from her small garden, determined to explore the rugged land around her. With Petunia trotting beside her, she wandered through the rolling hills and dry patches of earth, her heart longing for a sign of hope amid the desolation. One afternoon, while searching for wild herbs, she stumbled upon a tangled thicket that hid something unusual. Curiosity sparked within her, and she pushed through the dense branches, only to find herself standing before an old stone cistern. The structure was half buried under layers of dirt and weeds, but Clara could see the smooth stones that formed its walls. It looked like it hadn't been touched in years, forgotten by time and nature. "Goodness, what have we here?" as she whispered to Petunia, who peered curiously at the strange sight. Clara's heart raced with excitement as she circled the cistern, imagining what it could become. She noticed cracks in the stone but felt a surge of determination wash over her. Perhaps this hidden gem could be transformed into something useful. With every bit of energy she had left, Clara began to clear away the debris and uncover the structure. As she worked, she envisioned a home where she could shield herself from the harsh winds and sense of loneliness that plagued her. The sunlight danced on the stones as if encouraging her efforts, igniting a spark of hope that had long been dormant within her. Little did she know that this discovery would become the foundation for a new life filled with purpose and resilience. With the cistern now uncovered, Clara wasted no time in turning her vision into reality. The stone walls, though cracked and worn, held a certain charm that inspired her. She gathered her tools, a sturdy shovel and a few makeshift implements she had fashioned from old scraps, ready to start the transformation. First, Clara cleared out the debris that had accumulated over years. As she worked, she sang softly to Petunia, who nibbled on grass nearby, encouraging her with gentle bleats. Once the inside was clean, she inspected the cracks in the stone. Using mud mixed with bits of dried grass, Clara filled in the gaps to help keep out the cold winds and rain. Next came the task of making it comfortable. She collected wild grasses and soft moss from nearby patches to create a cozy bed in one corner of the cistern. With every handful of soft material, she imagined how warm it would feel against her weary body after long days of labor. To bring light into her new home, Clara fashioned an opening at the top of the cistern where sunlight could stream in during the day. It brightened her little sanctuary and made it feel less like a forgotten relic and more like a cherished space. As she worked tirelessly to make it livable, Clara felt a sense of purpose blooming within her heart. This was more than just survival, it was about reclaiming joy and creating a space where hope could flourish again. With each improvement, she transformed not only the cistern but also herself, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As Clara settled into her new life within the transformed cistern, a fierce winter storm began to brew on the horizon. Dark clouds gathered ominously, casting shadows over the land, and a biting wind howled through the plains. The once peaceful silence was shattered as snowflakes danced in the air, quickly swirling into a blizzard that threatened to isolate her from the outside world. With Petunia nestled close beside her, Clara felt a mix of fear and determination. "We can do this, girl," she whispered, trying to calm herself amidst the rising winds. She had worked so hard to create a safe haven, and she refused to let nature's fury take that away. As the storm raged outside, Clara fortified her cistern home, using blankets and straw to block any gaps where the cold air could seep in. She knew that warmth was crucial for survival. The walls of stone felt sturdy around her, providing a sense of security even as the wind rattled against them. Hours turned into days as the blizzard continued its relentless assault. Snow piled high outside, burying everything in sight. Clara could barely see through the small opening she had made for light, but she remained undaunted. She rationed her supplies carefully and kept Petunia close, sharing what little warmth they could generate together. In those long days of isolation, Clara found strength within herself that she never knew existed. She sang softly to Petunia to keep their spirits high, her voice echoing in the small space. "Tomorrow will be better," she reassured them both, holding on to hope as fiercely as she clung to her dreams for a brighter future. While Clara worked to endure the blizzard in her cistern, the townspeople faced their own dire situation. As the storm swept through the area, it trapped families in their homes, cutting them off from food supplies and warmth. The fierce winds howled outside, and snow piled against doors and windows, making it impossible for anyone to venture out. Inside their homes, panic began to set in. "We can't stay here without supplies," Mrs. Thompson exclaimed, her hands trembling as she looked around at her hungry children. Many of the townsfolk had relied on the market for groceries, but with the roads buried under relentless snow, hope dwindled. They knew they had to find a way to survive, but the options were growing slimmer by the hour. In one small house, a group of neighbors gathered in front of a flickering candle, sharing whispers of fear and uncertainty. "This storm could last for days," said Mr. Jenkins grimly. "We'll need to think fast if we want to make it through." The townspeople huddled together, trying to keep warm and conserve what little food they had left. Outside, desperation loomed in the air. Children cried as hunger gnawed at their stomachs, while parents exchanged worried glances, struggling to maintain semblances of calm amid chaos. "If only we could reach Clara," someone suggested, recalling tales of her strength and resilience since her husband had left her alone. They needed help, and Clara's resourcefulness seemed like their last hope against certain disaster in the grip of the unforgiving blizzard. As the blizzard raged outside, Clara felt a gnawing sense of urgency deep in her heart. She listened to the howling wind, realizing that her neighbors were in desperate need. Though her own supplies were limited, she knew she had to act. "I can't let them suffer," she murmured to Petunia, who looked up at her with trusting eyes. Clara gathered what little food she could spare, some dried herbs and roots, a small portion of the grain she had stored. "This will have to do," she said, feeling a mix of fear and resolve. She wrapped the makeshift supply bundle in a blanket, preparing for the journey through the storm. Stepping into the blizzard was daunting, the snow whipped around her like a furious beast. The weight of each step pressed down on her spirit, but Clara was determined. "I won't abandon them," she coaxed herself forward, urging Petunia along as they trudged through the deep snow. As they neared the town, Clara's mind raced with thoughts of what she could do. Once they reached the small cluster of homes, it became evident her cistern might serve as a refuge. "I have to offer them shelter," she decided, imagining how warmth and camaraderie could lift their morale. With resolve hardening within her, Clara knocked on doors, calling out to her neighbors. "Come with me. I can help." Her voice barely reached over the storm's roar, but hope surged in her heart as she saw familiar faces peering hesitantly from behind frosted glass. Slowly but surely, people began to gather, ready to embrace the warmth and safety that Clara's transformed home promised. As Clara stepped into the howling storm, her heart raced with a mix of fear and determination. Each gust of wind whipped against her face like icy daggers, but she pressed on, knowing her neighbors were depending on her. "I have to find supplies," she urged Petunia, who trotted closely by her side. Clara took a deep breath and focused on the task ahead. Navigating through the deep snow was no easy feat. It clung to her boots and slowed her down. She searched for any sign of food that could help not just herself but also those in need. "There must be something left in town," she said, recalling the market that had once bustled with life. Gritting her teeth, she pushed forward. Clara finally reached the outskirts of town, where she spotted a small barn that had been abandoned during the storm. "Maybe there's something useful inside," she thought as she made her way toward it. The door creaked ominously as she pushed it open, revealing shelves lined with scattered items that had been left behind in haste. With quick movements, Clara grabbed what she could: faded bags of cornmeal, some dried beans, and even a few forgotten jars of preserves nestled in the corner. Though each item was precious and hard to come by, Clara knew they would go farther when shared. As she filled her cloth sack with supplies, a wave of hope surged within her. "This will help so many people," she whispered to herself. With Petunia standing watch outside against the storm's fury, Clara knew their mission was just beginning, one brave step at a time toward bringing warmth and comfort to others in their time of need. With her sack full of supplies, Clara felt a renewed determination surge within her as she prepared to head back to town. The storm was relentless, but the thought of her neighbors' suffering kept her going. "They need this more than I do," she whispered to Petunia, who seemed to understand the urgency in her voice. Stepping back into the blizzard, Clara tightened her coat and pressed forward. The snow continued to fall heavily, making it difficult to see where she was going, but she recalled the path she had taken. With each step, the cold seeped into her bones, yet the warmth of compassion filled her heart. "Just keep moving," she encouraged herself. As Clara navigated through drifts of snow, she spotted the familiar outlines of the town ahead. Houses stood silent under mounds of white, and at that moment, she felt a flicker of hope. "I'm almost there," she called out to Petunia for encouragement. When Clara finally reached the first house, she knocked urgently on the door. "It's Clara. I have food." Her breath came out in visible puffs as she waited anxiously for a response. Moments later, Mrs. Thompson opened the door, her face lit with surprise and relief. "Clara! Thank goodness you're here," Mrs. Thompson exclaimed as Clara stepped inside, shaking off snow. One by one, she shared supplies among those gathered in the homes, creating a sense of unity amid despair. "This food will help us through," Clara assured them all while feeling grateful for every item she had risked so much to gather. In that chilly room filled with warmth from shared hearts, hope began to blossom anew against the biting storm outside. After Clara shared the supplies with her neighbors, word of her bravery and kindness quickly spread through the small town. In the days that followed, everyone began to speak of the incredible transformation she had made with the old stone cistern. Eager to see it for themselves, crowds gathered at her home, their eyes filled with astonishment as they approached. When they arrived at the cistern, Clara welcomed them with open arms, her heart swelling with pride at what she had created. "Come inside. I've made it warm and cozy for all of us," she called out, motioning for them to enter. As the townspeople stepped into the stone structure, gasps of amazement filled the air. The once neglected cistern was now a refuge bathed in soft light from the opening above, glowing like a beacon of hope. Pretty patches of moss lined one corner where Clara had created a makeshift bed, and a small table held jars of preserves and food she had managed to gather. "Clara, this is incredible," exclaimed Mr. Jenkins, his voice filled with admiration. "You turned an old relic into a home." The townspeople exchanged looks of disbelief and gratitude. They could hardly imagine how much effort it had taken her to create such a warm haven amid the cold world outside. "You saved us," Mrs. Thompson said tearfully, "and you brought us together." Clara smiled softly, overcome by their words. In that moment of shared warmth and comfort, she realized that they were no longer just neighbors, they had become a community bonded by resilience and compassion. Together, they knew they could weather any storm that came their way. As the townspeople settled into Clara's transformed Cistern, a newfound sense of community began to blossom among them. They gathered around the small table, sharing stories and laughter, their spirits lifted by the warmth of the space and the kindness they had experienced. Clara watched as familiar faces exchanged smiles, realizing how important it was to stand together in times of need. "Thank you, Clara," Mr. Jenkins said, raising a cup of tea in her direction. "You've shown us what true bravery looks like." The others nodded in agreement, their eyes shining with gratitude. The simple act of transformation had not only provided shelter but also fostered connections that had been neglected during hard times. As days passed, the Cistern became a hub of activity. Neighbors brought whatever they could spare, extra blankets, cooking supplies, and even stories to share around the flickering lanterns. Children played happily in the cozy space, their laughter echoing off the stone walls. Clara found herself smiling more each day as she witnessed this beautiful change. Together, they organized small tasks, some cooked meals while others tended to Petunia, ensuring that Clara didn't bear the burden alone. "We're all in this together," Clara reminded them, feeling a sense of belonging that she hadn't felt in years. The storm outside might have been fierce, but inside the Cistern, warmth and unity prevailed. Each person contributed their strength and support, showing that when faced with adversity, community could rise together. They learned that their bonds were stronger than any struggle they could face, and for the first time in a long while, hope illuminated their hearts. As the days turned into weeks, Clara reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. What began as a painful separation from her husband had transformed into an extraordinary opportunity for growth and connection. The once-forgotten stone cistern now stood as a testament to resilience, not only for her but for the entire community. Clara smiled as she watched families gather, sharing laughter and warmth in what had become their refuge during a time of crisis. In the heart of the Wild West, where hardship often overshadowed hope, Clara's courage illuminated a path forward. She had taken her misfortune and turned it into something beautiful, a place where individuals became neighbors, and neighbors became friends. The bonds they formed were stronger than any storm, teaching them all that unity and kindness could weather even the harshest of circumstances. Clara often thought about how every struggle she faced, every challenge she overcame, led to this remarkable sense of belonging. "I'm grateful for my journey," she would whisper to Petunia while watching children play nearby. It was no longer just about survival, it was about building a life filled with purpose and love. As they gathered for meals and shared stories by the dim candlelight, Clara realized that the old stone cistern had become more than just a home, it was a beacon of hope for all those who stepped inside. Together, they forged a community that would continue to thrive, reminding each other that even in the toughest times, there is always a chance for new beginnings and brighter tomorrows.